Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here, talking about for the Pixar Cars 3 right here, talk about for tutor accounts, and basically that this activity right here, I went and did some Photoshop work right here with the Cars characters, and talking about racing license experiment. And if we know about what it usually is like, is to when we experiment around with something. If anybody were to ask as to what does it usually mean whenever you experiment around with something, and that could also maybe mean is to our phone right here. Especially if you're going to be connected to the internet. And I know if anybody were to say that, by the time that they get the phone turned on, that they're going to go ahead and try to after it's activated, and they're going to go ahead and do some research, maybe look up about the movies, and maybe release dates or something like that. But talking about for tutoring, and you have right here is this print, and I went ahead and print off right here with these sketches right here. That right there is supposed to be me right there. And let's just say that if anybody were to say that if you think that whenever you first start class, that you feel as to where that it's you don't know too much about a lot of stuff, and it seems like that if anybody were to say that other students, that some of them that may be just like you, to where they only know so much, and some of them that seem like to where that you show up for class one morning, and it's like people are working and moving a faster pace than you are. Like if anybody were to think this, to where that you feel that way, to where that maybe that you are as smart as a genius and intelligent as they are. And it is right here, this example right here of a teacher. And so if anybody say that, the teacher, a lot of times that the teacher's going to say is to where that, that if you're going to be drawing, the teacher right there, use there's some of the ink, right there, that, some of it's wearing out. But, anyway, but talking about right here with the teacher right here. And so this right here was an example right there of the teacher, and a lot of times that if we're going to be in the classroom, that just think about is that you learn to where what has the class learned about me, especially teaching somebody about how to use online accounts, and then how to train them by mobile. And if we all remember that back whenever we were in class, if they seen you on your phone, maybe playing a game, or maybe checking out a news article, maybe if it's something related to the president, and then it's like think is that okay, you're not supposed to be on there, or so if most of us can remember that back in those days, that they would have it to where that you cannot be on your mobile phone at a certain time. And it's like if you had to have a calculator, and I know some teachers would say if you're going to be taking a math test, that they don't want you to be on your calculator. They don't want you to be using your calculator just to take a math test. And like I say, that a lot of times each math problem that they say that they want you to memorize the answers to a lot of those math tests, and if we're talking about only maybe 30 seconds that they give you just to be able to answer a few of those questions and then turn in the test results. But let's just say with the calculator, a calculator that would help improve. I say if you could use a calculator just to be able to help remember that the math digits, or some may say that that if you memorize the answers very well, that you can get through each math problem within about 25 seconds. And so if anybody say that if you're going to be taking any test online or by mobile, then you're talking about that sometimes that there's going to be technical problems. Then you're talking about that it's possible that it's going to maybe take longer than 25 seconds or so just to be able to get their final results, and as well as learning about how in order to be able to take the test. And a lot of times it's multiple choice questions too, that whenever I take a test, that if they say that you have about 45 or so minutes, or maybe an hour and 20, just to answer about 25 questions. So let's just say that these sketches right here, this right here is the teacher, and this right here will be an example right here of the students. But I'm only working with the blue and then the green right here. But I'll go and add in right here is that this was right here was me right here. So let's just say that that whenever you get a letter, maybe from the school, and they say that let's just say the situation goes by to where that they're willing to offer you a prize. It's like, say, maybe your car's 3 bubble bath or something like that, or maybe if it's anything such as maybe an iPad or something like that, they're willing to give you a prize if you make a good grade on the math test or something like that. But I know at the schools that a lot of time, I don't know about anything big such as maybe free movie passes or tickets or maybe the car's toy set or something like that they would offer as a prize. But really that for what the movie usually tells us is to where, like they say, is the Piston Cup really considered a prize or like a source of trophy? And what source of trophy can we learn just by is to where that if you're going to be able to have the capability to where you watch a movie by mobile. If you're able to watch a movie by mobile or maybe read a book by mobile, then you're able to where you can watch the movie, Disney movies on your phone, and if you have an account on there, and you're just like Warren to where that with anything about what is considered to be a prize, and how do you explain prizes, and sometimes that even while we're in school that we want to where that racing license experience. And so whenever we buy a coloring book, that there could be what you call information about, for more information, visit us online, and then talk about for pay grade and unlimited. So I know I talked about unlimited, so I'd be on that there is no limit to how many times that you can try something, and then for choices about such about the points and credits and stuff like that. But about for I was also thinking about including the racetrack with a few loops. But talk about for pay grade. So I know I talked about before about pay grade, but if anybody were warned to, or what does that usually mean? And it could maybe be but still one main reason I want to really talk about right here about pay grade is that knowing about something that was considered your responsibility, something that was considered your job from a while back, but then it wound up becoming to be a big problem. So let's just say that if it's going to be anything about accounts, or if it's anything going to be about maybe a worker data that you were working on about maybe 3 years ago, and then you thought that maybe the problem was resolved, or maybe that the situation and the case was closed, but then something went wrong. And I know, like anybody probably say, whenever something goes wrong, especially if you're in the classroom, that that almost all the time, that I've gotten so used to it to where it seems like to where I'm expecting to where that whenever there's a problem that comes up, I know what I gotta do. But with everybody else, it seems like that there's a problem. Well, we don't know because we don't have very many problems. And I tell you one thing, I can tell anybody here, I was that type of student to where that almost all the time that I would have, problems. If I'm trying to get something to work, or if I'm trying to, maybe experiment around with something a little bit, and just like say, if you're trying to get something to work, and it seems like that, unless if you were to, if I can describe it, unless if you were to have your hissy, unless if you were to have your hissy fits, or maybe if you were to say that, come on, work, but really, that sometimes it seems like to where if anybody will warn to where if you're trying to order a movie online, or maybe if you're trying to play a game online, and just thinking about is to where that number of things that you say, about it, about what you're working on, and how frustrating you get, just to try to get something to work. And really, that do we really want to rewind that moment and just say that, okay, playback, go ahead and go to playback mode. This is what's been going on. Okay, this is what you said whenever you were trying to get this to work, or trying to get that figured out. But really, that the whole challenging purpose about this, even if it's watching Disney movies, or if it's maybe playing a game, that you know, really, that if anybody were warned to her, that you know, whenever you come up with problems and situations, that it seems like with my case, it seems like it's almost all the time, to where it's like, you know, you were expecting to deal with the problem after, you know, you go ahead and you spend a couple of minutes, to a couple of hours trying to get something to work. But then on the other hand, it's like, you know, that by the time you get something to work, by the time it stops working, and then people are not going to want to mess with it. So it seems like to where that, you know, whenever you go into the tutor room just to be able to answer a few math questions, it's like, yep. And then for anybody who wants to give me my certificate, or if anybody who wants to hire me on a job or go to the next step, is to where that after you complete a year or two of this course, and it goes on to you say job research, or if it's anything related to maybe anything about you sign up to become a member of the club team or something like that, the club, or you know, anything about memberships. And it's like, yeah, well, we'll see what happens. You know, I'll see you in 5 years, or we'll see what happens in 5 years. And they're likely say, yeah, it's not going to take that long. Like, and and how do you configure that? And like, I would maybe say that, you know, yeah, well, how do you configure that? Because whenever I take these classes, it seems like that, you know, you got nothing to lose. You know, you can do it. You know, you can do it no problem at all. But then whenever you start running into problems, that's whenever you're like, yeah, you know, you want to impress the teacher almost every time, and you want to impress the students each and every time. But how are you going to do that whenever you have situations to where it's stuff that just don't want to work? And let's just say that, you know, from basically on your progress, especially for what goes on your grade report. This is supposed to be an example right here of me right here, but for what goes on your grade report, it seems like if anybody were to say that, you know, if you're going to do what it takes just to be able to show some improvement, and if anybody say, especially the language, you know, the language and what you speak, you know, if anybody were warned toward that, you know, the language of what you speak, that if you got issues with language, that, you know, you're trying to understand a little bit more about, you know, maybe learning the languages. But let's just say if it's going to be anything about language, or if it's anything about spelling and then you know, grammar or anything like that, that we want to where that, you know, something that you were born with, we have most difficulties with, and how do we handle that to where the situations to where we come up to where that we have most difficulties with something. And it seems to where that you know, that maybe we shouldn't put too much you know, pressure on the mind, because on the other hand too, that with anybody who will say that, you know, it seems like that there's a difference between what you want to learn, how you want to learn it, and then what you're learning now. And so if we take us to where that if anybody were to think that, you know, you go into the tutor room and you're thinking as to where that you need to have 5 years of training just to learn something, especially if anybody say that, you know, no, they need to teach me, I can't teach them. Yeah, you can't put that in the opposite direction. No, you know, I need a tutor assistants. I can't tutor them. But still, that so let's just say the situation comes to where that you know, if you know a lot about this mobile stuff, and let's just say somebody else that they say that, you know, can you teach me how to do this? And you kind of feel like saying this to her, that, you know, really, what's in it for me? Really, you know, what can I teach you? Like, well, what have you learned from me? But really, that if there is going to be a lady that may meet you maybe in class, or maybe during the meeting, and they're going to maybe warn to where that, you know, that, you know, something that you can maybe teach them also. And like I say that, well, you know, if you want to learn, to draw squares or circles, you know, I might be able to teach you a little bit about that. But really, that if anybody wanted to where that you go to the tutor room and you feel like that you go, I say, well, I'll see you in 5 years. Like, what you talking about? Like, I'll see you in 5 years, which means is toward it that, we'll see what happens in 5 years, because 5 years is about how long it's going to take just, for something to be improved, or, if I'm qualified for it. And so we wanted to where that you need to source a racing license. That it seems like it's all about a race, because if you're campaigning maybe against 3 other people, maybe for a job, it seems like that's what's going on. That we found another candidate that's willing to fulfill this position, and we didn't see that match on your resume. So it seems like to where that there's about maybe 3 or 4 other people that tried to apply for a job, or maybe if any other members that they think is to where that for anything about problems and issues, but still that for our tutors, understanding about tutors and teachers that do we feel embarrassed when we had to ask for help? And I know sometimes with me though, whenever I had to ask for help, at the time, it seems like to where that, do you even ask for help too much at a time? I tell them no, because it seems like to where that, this person right here, if they're going to be a student, then sometimes you don't even bother to ask for help. And if, a lot of teachers up there at the schools since elementary school that they've asked me that same question, to where that, how come you don't tell the teachers, or how come you don't ask for assistance? And sometimes it seems like that what they're saying is to where you're on your own, or that's just too bad. But really, that sometimes it seems like to where that, whenever you're going to be in a room with about maybe 15 other students, it seems like that they're kind of looking at you like, hey, that's your problem. And it seems like that's kind of like what they're saying is to where that's your problem. If you can't, if you don't understand something, that's your problem. But I don't know if that applies to everybody. So it's like, whenever you come to school, it seems like that you really want to start talking and learning something your way, and start teaching people a little about your skills. And it seems like that there's a difference between your skills, your talents, and your skills, and compared to what they need to teach you up there at the schools. And I can tell anybody here that if you know a few skills that about, how to download mobile apps and how to get on the internet, from your mobile phone. But let's just say there's another device that they're teaching you about how to use at the schools, or maybe on a job, or maybe at the businesses, or during the meetings, or anything like that. And whenever you come into situations to where if you were trying to teach somebody something, and it's like, you want to go ahead and teach somebody something, and just think as to where that trying to impress somebody, or if you're just like, like to teach somebody, and but they may say that, you get, real frustrated about it, mainly because that, a few other students there that aren't having any problems at all. But okay, me, Matthew, he's having problems. He's always had problems. He's always had problems because of the fact about, maybe his lack source of education, maybe because of what he's qualified for, or over the fact because none of his ideas work. But really, that, before we get into true and false facts, is to where that, between true and false, is that, with anything that Matthew's going to be working on, especially. And you're just like wondering to where that, really, what has the class learned from Matthew? Really, that if you get something to work, then chances are that people are going to want to talk to you. If you get something to work, and then people are going to want to talk to you, and they're going to maybe ask you, how did you do that? But still, that whenever you can't get something to work, it seems like to where that, so it's like, if people know what I'm talking about, pat on the back, or how you want to describe it. You get a pat on the shoulder. One about 4 classmates that, at some point, someday, whenever you go into the classroom, that, you would like to have a pat on the back every once in a while from one of the students for like, hey, good job, good going, Matthew, or something like that. But sometimes you don't get it, and anybody that like me would maybe think that to where that why is it the pats on the back are so important to you, and why is it that they're such a big deal? But anyway. Let's say with tutors, and I'm sure anybody say it's not going to take that long, 5 years, but if anything, give it a year. And if I say that, maybe if you feel that you need more tutor assistance compared to anything else, just like I say with the racing license experiment. And so if anybody will warrant to where that, what does it usually mean whenever we experiment around with something? It basically means is to where that, if you're doing something, I guess the best word of how to describe it is to where you're testing it out. You're doing something, you don't know what it's going to do until you actually try it. But if anybody actually, if we were to if we were to think twice as to where that, really that if we're not too careful, that maybe with the pencil, and especially if you guys sign something, then they would ask anybody as to where that if you're going to be experimenting around with something, to make sure you know exactly about what it's going to do after you do this or after you do that. But these right here may look like just lines right here. If we can see this right here, they may look like just lines. But from what I learned, from the 3rd grade, if I can remember right, that underline, it could. It's also like we say, like if we want to call a pronoun or a synonym, to where a license, to where that before you go on to about maybe 3 or 4 more paragraphs or sentences about a few vocabulary words, that the 3 lines basically means, like if it's supposed to be action verbs, or if anybody say that, especially if they're going to be marking a few spellings and punctuations wrong, and then they would put 3 lines right there. So if one word is supposed to be like action verbs or just a simple phrase. So racing may be a phrase, and then this one right here, that the license will be like, say, a verb. But still, that if anybody say that it's any sort of language skills, and knowing about how many times do you need to try just to be able to get the answer right? Is that unlimited so far as the pay grade goes? But anyway, but understanding about how accounts work, and if anybody were wanted to that anything about accounts, and then knowing the use of the mobile device. But anyway, but there you have it, talking about understanding about the Cars 3 accounts and so forth, license experiments. Talk about tutoring hours. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.